All ready to get started? Sir? Let me just start by introducing the folks on our side of the table. So starting from my left, Captain Manning Hall, who's the clerk of the Cannabis Commission. Janelle Levitz is to our right, who's a local attorney and is a member of the commission. Diana Jordan, who's an appointee from the mayor. Myself, I'm Ron Hogan, chair of the committee. Nelson Miller, who is the city's building commissioner, and police chief Kevin Wallace. So certainly we'll give you a chance as we turn it over to you to introduce yourself. I know you had mentioned you've watched some of the videos, so you kind of get an idea of what our goal is, which is quite simply to get to know you, to get to know your proposal, and to try to figure out who it is that's best to do business within the city of Malden. This is a competitive process for us, right? So we've got both a minimum and a maximum of 5 retail licenses that we're looking to issue. We of course got no commitment to issue all 5 of them all at once. We'll move forward with only those applicants that meet the criteria that we're looking to move forward from. So I think from meeting with some of the other committees up to this point in time, one of the most important things for us is to understand who's who, who's part of the ownership team, who's here because they're here just to fill up a couple seats, right? Really understand the role of everybody across the table, because ultimately we want to know who it is that's going to be doing business in our city. So we're going to probably jump in and interject as we have questions, and I'm going to turn it over to you all to take it from there.
Great, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you all for doing what you're doing. While we did our best to get as much as we could into that application in about a month, I think it's great that you're bringing us in to get to know who we really are and what our background is. That being said, we prepared a little presentation. I have some handouts for you to kind of follow along if you need to. And we'll start out by kind of just introducing ourselves, but we'll give a little background on who we are and how we got into the industry. My name is Eric Gaff. I'm the owner of Misty Mountain Shop. I live in Chelmsford, Mass. With my wife, 2 kids. I was raised in Tewksbury, Mass. I went to UMass Lowell. Graduated mechanical engineering in 2004. Shortly after graduating, I started with BLW Engineers out of Littleton, Mass. BLW is a consulting company, MEP Consulting. We design HVAC, electrical, plumbing, fire protection systems. So we work a lot with clients in restaurants, hospitals, offices, stuff like that. For the first 10 years of my career, after 10 years, I started getting bored in the industry until I found the cannabis industry. 2014, my daughter was born, and I would be bringing her back and forth to daycare, and I crossed paths with her husband, and I found out that he was the facility manager at Garden Remedies. Garden Remedies is a cultivation center in Fitchburg, and they have a dispensary in Newton. So he found out I was an engineer, and he had a bunch of questions on HVAC. They had, a little bit of issues, but fast forward, long story short, they brought me in for an interview. They hired me to design a phase 2 build out. So we started that process. It's a long process. There's a lot that goes into the design of these facilities, state-of-the-art facilities. But throughout that process, I got to know the client. I got to know the people that are in the industry, and I really started to develop a passion. And I'm sitting in the meeting, and I'm just like, this is it. This is what I want to do. So after that, since then I've designed 20 plus retail and cultivation facilities. So I have a lot of connections in the industry, and a lot of people that I've met, and so on. So fast forward again, I'm at a family party, and I'm talking to my cousin about what I'm doing, and she tells me that they have a property in the zone in Malden. So I said, I really want to get deeper into the industry. I'm really into this. I have a lot of people that I like working with. Would you be open to letting me open a retail store? And they're like, absolutely. We got your back 100%. So here I am. At that point, I said I'm gonna find the best consultants and people I can work with, and I'm gonna do my thing, and here we are. So I'll let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about them.
So my name is Tim Gunther. I co-own I Love Compliance, which is a cannabis and hemp consulting company on compliance. I plan to be part of the operational team for Misty. We currently have clients in 18 states and support 54 locations. So when you talk about compliance in the industry, we do everything from the policy procedure piece to help them really understand about all of the issues related to diversion, training, and all that. So we have clients in this state besides Misty that actually use our services that are part of the program, and we're excited to be part of this team and show you guys why we believe overall from an operations perspective we're a right pick to wall.
My name is Abigail Gunther. I'm his wife. We started this business about 3.5 years ago. My background is prior military, United States Air Force, security forces. Then I went to Lockheed Martin with background investigations for security clearances, Inspector General for U.S. Virgin Islands, Special Investigator, then Department of Homeland Security ICE agent. So when we started this, our background with law enforcement and corrections, we kind of fit in this with the regulations and policies, so we decided to do this. So that's where we come into play.
Hello, my name is Danielle Lopalato. I've been a licensed social worker for the state of Massachusetts for over 20 years. So my experience has been primarily in healthcare settings. My role really being assisting patients and their families navigating through our complicated healthcare system. So really our system is pretty heavily regulated by the Department of Public Health and influenced by the insurance companies for guidelines and coverage. So my role is mostly advocating for these patients with serious illness, often at any stage of life, and that's really become a passion for me. So my interest in cannabis initially stemmed from patients and families asking about it during their stays and during care planning meetings. And what I found is that there really still is limited knowledge from doctors, nurses, and the team on where to go with this. So I wanted to learn more about it as an approach to care, just like I would with any other medication or treatments prescribed. And I would say that drive to learn more about alternative treatments really grew when my mother was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer at 57. So Eric, being my cousin, was really able to lead us in our family because of his knowledge and background in that cannabis world. And it really proved to be invaluable, as Western medicine often does. It failed us, unfortunately, and caused multiple side effects. So really since then, I've heard so many similar stories and success stories about cannabis helping people in so many ways with the medical issues. So really, I feel like we'll all become a patient or a caregiver at some time or another, and we should have that right to choose what is involved in our care, whether it's care or even our personal lives and recreationally. So I'm happy to jump into this and appreciate the opportunities that the cannabis industry is offering, and I plan to use my background professionally and life experience in helping promote education and community outreach for the city of Malden with Misty Mountain.
My name is Jonathan Napoli. I am the retail consultant for Misty Mountain. I met Eric through his engineering work on existing facilities that I was a part of here in Massachusetts. I helped build, design, and continue to help operate the In Good Health dispensary out of Brockton. We were the second dispensary to open in Massachusetts and the first to operate as a normal retail store where we weren't seeing people by appointment. You could come in during operating hours, and we would see you, serve the public, and see you through the exit. But we have been open and operating since September of 2015. We've been open 7 days a week, 364 days a year. We have been compliant and transparent the whole time. We've never been dinged by the DPH or CCC like a lot of other operators have. In fact, we've set an example for the CCC and the DPH in many ways. We've been visited by them regularly over the last 4 years, and we work hand in hand with them. And we want to continue to expand and be up here with Eric to get a retail shop over here, use our expertise, learn from what we've done right, learn from any mistakes that we made, and bring all that expertise and knowledge to play here in Malden.
Hi, my name is Karen Hawks. I was a state trooper for 13 years, and until 2006 when a stroke ended my career in law enforcement. I became involved in the industry back in 2010 as an advocate for the passage of the humanitarian use of medical marijuana bill. Once the bill was passed, I actually had no intention of being involved in implementation. However, the opportunity arose, and I realized that with my experience and background, was well suited to serve the industry. I've been in the industry, cannabis industry now for over 5 years as a security professional. I designed and implemented security plans and programs from the ground up at 3 retail and 1 cultivation site. All are successfully operational. The security systems that I designed consistently pass state inspections. I also trained staff, managers, and security coordinators at each site and was the liaison for the local police department. I met Eric, who was an engineer on the build-out projects at the sites that I worked at. I left that company before Eric approached me to work for Misty Shop. I met with the team, and I found it to be a good fit with very capable people. I was very impressed with their knowledge and experience and background, and I'm very confident in this team's ability to open and run a successful store and that Misty Shop would be a good neighbor and an asset to the community of Malden.
Great. Okay, so this is our mission statement to create positive and exciting experiences for the Malden community inside and outside of our marijuana establishment. Our vision is a brand that is well known by the community as friends and family who operate a retail store that acts as a showcase for the most talented cultivators in Massachusetts. Kind of self-explanatory. We want to be a part of the community. We want to do what we can, get involved, and the showcase portion is we want to work with all the cultivators that have done engineering for and help build their facilities and help them sell their products. Current property, this is 323 Commercial Street. Existing is what it looks like. There's an aerial view. We have some plans to change the property a little bit. We're going to give it a facelift. We're going to tear down the back third of the building to create basically a drive path around the building and create some more parking. We're also going to obviously do the retail fit up and also repave the entire driveway and add striping for the parking lot.
Can I ask just, because you had submitted some modified plans that went down to the fact that you can distribute to the rest of the committee. So you mentioned tearing down the back third of the building, but it looked like there was almost this concept on the top part of the building, I guess it would be the right-hand side building from Commercial Street, of turning that into some sort of parking, or did I look at the, right, so that's the side of the building, is that right?
Correct, so if you look at from Commercial Street,
Yep.
put that. So there's a garage door here, and then we would create another opening here so that you'd be able to drive in. It's currently serving as basically a garage for repairs and stuff for machinery, and we would just transform that into a parking garage. Yes. That is the idea. We can work together to find out what the best solution is, but that's the plan right now.
Just curious, what led you to that so unique, right? I mean, so you're taking part of the building and you're kind of turning it into a drive-through parking area. What led you to make that change, I guess?
Well, to be honest with you, when I originally looked at the zoning ordinances, I was a little bit wary about the principal use. And in order to get the application in, we weren't sure what we were going to do with this tenant space. Through discussions with the landlord, I was able to determine that they were okay with relocating that existing business, and that we could take the whole building. I knew that it was too much space. We didn't want to spend the money to fit the whole thing out for a retail space. It's just a huge cost for 14,000 square foot building. Parking's critical, so we were trying to find as much parking as possible, and I thought that's a great spot for it. We'd have a bunch of different options to use that parking garage, whether we wanted to change it into an employee parking area and have limited access, or if we just allowed customers, depending on the type of crowd we have.
So that's going to be more of just a covered parking area.
Correct.
More so than a parking garage.
Right now, my thought is to not have the doors, just allow the open air. We don't have to ventilate it or anything, and just have people able to drive in. Yeah, just park.
The wall on the exterior side of the top in this picture, those will all stay in place, right? It's essentially.
This will stay in place. This is currently a door. We'll probably remove the door, and then when this wall gets built out, we'll keep it open connectivity.
And there would be any portion of your operations that take place inside that covered parking area, not? Because at some point, if you did, you would start to cross over the line where you have to start counting that portion of the building against your parking load.
Absolutely.
As opposed to, you know what I mean?
Right. And since we're on topic, if we can address that, basically I calculated the square footage of the retail. This being the retail here is 78 square feet. This we have back of house offices, that's 1705 square feet, and then there's upstairs offices as well. So the total square footage is 7288. That would put our requirement at 29.1 parking spaces, and with the addition of this, we're at 49 total.
Do you have any security concerns with respect to it being covered or less accessible by plain sight?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to dig into that. We didn't get a new security plan yet for the surveillance or anything, but I'll let Karen speak to that.
Well, we will have surveillance cameras in that area. And the entire perimeter of the park, all of the parking lots will be well lit and have HD, IP, state-of-the-art surveillance cameras that also are equipped with infrared lighting.
Good.
Yeah.
What would be that back door, sorry?
This one?
Yes.
Right now, just page 3. We're actually thinking that we possibly, depending on how much space we need, we might even tear down the wall of the building. So that's kind of still. Okay, so right now we've raised $1 million through 2 different investors. We have a construction estimate from a builder for $400,000 for the bid out, including the parking lot and the interior space. The offices are already offices, so we don't really have to do anything there. And then we're planning on an initial inventory product of $200,000. That leaves us with about $400,000 left over for salaries, people working, and unforeseen circumstances, which we all know happen.
With respect to your investment, through the 2 investors, I was looking at those commitments. One for Shannon McGinnis for 8%. One she contributes, I'm assuming, at $500K.
Correct.
For preferred equity with distributions on a quarterly basis, but that looks like those distributions come after the other Ivy May. It
Correct.
looks like they get paid out first at
Correct.
5%. So will those be coming out of your shares, or who is the company going to be issuing shares that they already have authorized? It looks like right now you own 90%.
It would basically dilute all of us.
Okay, equally.
Yep, and they would get worked into the operating agreement.
Do you have any other capital commitments from them if there are further unexpected costs or business isn't as great as we thought it was going to be, or
Right.
something gets turned a little?
Yeah. So they did express interest in purchasing more. We had an agreement, on how much equity, and that's basically what the amount we wanted to give up at the time. But they are prepared to invest more.
And you have some construction estimate, I think it's safe to say it's fluid, right? As you sort of figure out exactly what you want to do within the building, you talk about maybe tear it down more, maybe tear it down. Do you have an architect involved that's
Yes.
giving you some, because, you know, obviously part of what we're trying to do is make sure that your plan is executable, right? Because sort of after the joy is saying, yeah, they seem like they know what they're doing, wears off, right? If you're sitting back saying, well, you know, we gotta figure out how to get this done. And so we wanna sort of understand, you've got somebody that's engaged that is helping you figure out that you can tear down the back part of the building?
Correct. So we're working with BKA architects. I work with them a lot in retail spaces and cultivation. Vantage Builders has built a lot of retail spaces as well. They got me the estimate, and the architect helped work that through. And then Bertuccio Construction, the landlord, Bertuccio Construction gave me an estimate on what it would. They're going to help tear down the back of the building and pave it as well.
So they're a tenant there, right?
Correct.
They're not the building owner?
Yes, they are. It's a separate company though.
Okay.
The landlord is 323 Commercial, and Bertuccio is Bertuccio Construction. Separate companies, but same owners.
So they have a problem working on the two moving out as that fit as in.
Exactly. Figured that out right there.
Okay.
We good? Okay. Exterior after construction, as you can see the building facade, we tear down the existing garage door and create a storefront. The side of the building would do home siding, and that's pretty much it, other than the paving and everything for the parking lot for the exterior model. Proposed parking plan, we've kind of already discussed what I intend on discussing, so, and at that point, we're going to turn it over to Karen and talk about security.
So the exterior plan, so the purpose of the security plan is to deter, prevent, detect, and delay criminal activity. To that end, like I said, we have HD, state-of-the-art video surveillance cameras around the entire perimeter and in the parking lots. They all are equipped with infrared, and we also light everything up, the parking lots and the perimeter of the building. Video cameras will be placed at all points of entry and exit. Shall be angled to allow for the capture of clear and certain identification of anybody entering and exiting the store. Any bushes or foliage are going to be maintained so that there's no way anybody can conceal themselves behind them. Cameras will be monitored on site by security personnel, and they'll also managers and security personnel will have the ability to monitor cameras from their smartphone, tablet, or a laptop. There is also, if you can see there, a Sally port that will be used for the delivery of product from other licensees. The delivery times and dates will be randomized, and only authorized staff will be told the dates and times of the deliveries. Before delivery is made, security will do a visual sweep of the exterior, make sure that there's no suspicious vehicles or suspicious activity going on. The delivery vehicle will call the authorized staff member on site ahead of time to give them an ETA so that that person can meet the van once they arrive, so that they can open the Sally Port door and the van's not waiting outside, so that they're not a sitting target, if you will. So once the vehicle is inside the Sally Port, the door will be secured before any unloading is done. All deliveries will be made in this locked and secured area by authorized personnel only and under video surveillance. There will be a secured level 3 access control from the Sally Port into the rest of the building, meaning that you have dual authentication. You have to enter a PIN and a card swipe in order to enter that the door into the rest of the building. For the exterior.
Okay, that brings us to the interior. Do you want to touch on the entry?
Sure. So customers will enter the main entrance into a secured vestibule where they will present a government-issued photo ID to the trained security personnel at the reception. Security is going to be trained. They'll visually check the ID against the person to make sure it's that person that's depicted in the ID. Then they'll scan the ID through an ID scanner that will validate the authenticity of the ID. If the customer has ever been in the store before, then it'll automatically show up the last date and time that the customer was at of the last visit. And then customers are going to have to show their ID again once that they approach the point of sales to make the purchase. All staff, including the security, will be trained to detect whether an individual is impaired, and all staff will refuse to sell to any individual who they suspect is impaired or who is a threat to public safety or who is suspected of diversion.
Who does that training? Is that something that's part of what you all do?
Yeah, so it's a combination of on-site training and we've built training for the diversion piece. We actually present at law enforcement as well. So we've been to the IACP and presented there twice on just understanding public safety issues. And then we build out all the trainings done both on-site and then within a technology tool that's used for all employees to sign off on. So at any time you guys came in and asked to see what training we had done, we basically can give you access or run a report, show you when it's done, and it's hands-on. It's a combination of both.
It's an amazing system you showed me yesterday. It's a lot of checks and balances, a lot of thought put into that. And I'll share my security plan with the chief, and for his review and approval, I'll be the point of contact and collaborate on any security-related items. I'll be working on-site and will be available as a point of contact, the liaison for the police department. And during training and the day-to-day, we foster a culture of safety and responsibility to create a safe environment for the staff and the customers.
So as you build out, sort of lay out and build out the facility and figure out how many point of sale terminals and what that is. I mean, John, is that sort of what your role is, to bring that retail experience to the table? Because
yeah, I would provide the expertise of how much POS stations they need. I want to bring in the CD sales software and train up the employees on that. I'm going to help create the menu of products. I'm going to help bring in the product for the store. And that is primarily my role. You know, maybe I'm the only one here with all the retail experience. A lot of things will come up along the way. But, you know, creating the menu, creating the experience, making sure that everyone is trained on that seed to sale software, and training on just how to handle the customers, knowledge of the product. That's generally my lane that I'm in.
And John's been nice enough to offer me to bring me into his store and personally train, well, not him personally, but his staff train me.
Well, yeah,
in a real world environment before I get my store open, he's gonna bring me in and actually be basically a cashier, a customer service rep, so that I have that experience before my store opens. And then I will add that I'm gonna be at the store every day, operating and overseeing things. So he's gonna train the trainee or the trainer.
Yeah, so I mean that's one of the services we provide. So we have an existing facility that we're able to bring people in and train them up on the software. You know, they can watch how we handle the customers. They can see how where we have the product, how we move between the product and the registers, and generally how things flow in the store, so that they can hit the ground running and not, you know, really be nervous on that first day of sales. You know, they already have experience and are used to it doing something that they've essentially done before.
so there's an agreement between you all for John's role, and sort of is it a get up and running agreement and then you're off? Because it sounds like going forward, this is your full-time
Yes.
function, right? And you're the guy that sort of run things on a day-to-day basis. So, but is that John's role sort of limited? Is that?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is, if we get the notice from Malden to proceed to the next level, we have a contract written up that we'll sign, and we'll start working on all of it. He's going to start helping me with everything.
And I've done work for multiple years.
So yeah, so that could go on as long as we need to, but the same deal. Correct. Where I I suspect it's gonna take us, you know, between the licensing process, the build-out process, between Malden, the Cannabis Control Commission, and then building in general, it could take anywhere from 6 months to a year. So that would all be time that we're training to be able to operate. So I'm hoping by the time we open, we'll be pretty fluent, you know.
Are you pursuing any other licenses right now in any other cities, just this one?
Just Malden.
Excuse me, these are display cases?
We're looking at this one, yes, product, but you're not taking product out of the display case, that's permanently in there just for visualization. All the product is kept locked up in cabinets behind these sales.
So these are like samples, like,
Just something so you can see, maybe just like,
okay.
yeah, just to see what the product looks like, to see what we offer, rather than looking at the menu in the back.
And I'll make a comment. So a lot of times in the operations that we support around the country, when we have display cases like this, what we do is we get the packaging, because we're not processing anything within the store, we're also on prepackaged items. And we'll either waste out what's in the product and put it in the display, so it's just an empty box, but they see it, because really visually, unless you're buying dry flower, is where people usually have questions, but you want to be able to display, much like you do in a store, to see product. And all of the stuff, even the stuff, if we have it in there, will be tracked from a standpoint of waste, where we put it, and then put those displays out.
And then you mentioned supplies a couple of times. Do you have folks that you anticipate getting supplies from? I mean, John, you're not a cultivator, right?
I am, yes, we also have a cultivator license.
So you're building a custom one.
Yes, exactly, yeah, so
That's right.
we hope to be able to supply Eric, and you know, I have, and Eric also has a lot of relations within the industry, and I have a lot of relations with the industry, that we're gonna be able to connect this shop up with the proper cultivators.
And we actually have 5 written agreements already in our application, so. And we're gonna continue to build on that. Build our showcase. Okay, so the customer experience, after checking in, they'll be greeted by a customer service rep. They'll be buzzed into the store and then greeted by a customer service rep, who would basically give them 3 options. If they're new to cannabis, Danielle's going to have trained some people in the education. Danielle's actually going to be on site as well, so that they can meet with her if they will have a bunch of questions on all things cannabis, whether it's you know, the effects or ways of consumption. So that would be option 1. They could sit down on a couch and discuss it and not be rushed to the store. Option 2 would be basically, have you been here before? You're not new to cannabis. You can basically go wait in line. We'll have some touch screens on the wall. You can view the menu. We might have some handouts that they can kind of look at the menu if there is a line. Option 3 would be online ordering. They'll be able to order online from their smartphone or whatever. Once they're checked in, they can proceed directly to the express checkout. They'll be asked for their ID again, their order, and then they'll be able to leave quickly. And that kind of expedites the process. Ron, you asked about how many POS stations. We're showing 8 here now. I'm thinking closer to 20. This is in architectural rendering, obviously, but I think 20 is to be able to have that capability to get people out of the store. We have a capacity with this square footage to put about over 100 people in the building. So we should try to keep people off the sidewalk, and having a lot of POS stations would be able to keep everybody in the building and get people through quickly.
You said you could order online, so I live home and I order stuff. Do I still have to go through the same process to just pick up the product? How do you do that?
Correct. You'd have to still check in. They'd have to check your ID in order to enter the building, and then once you get into the retail floor, there'll be a customer service rep there to ask you. You just tell that person, I ordered ahead, and you'll proceed to a different line.
Oh,
and
okay.
believe it or not, you'll probably have to wait in line there too, if a lot of people are calling.
Yeah, from a compliance perspective, it's the same way. You online order, when you show up, you show your ID, you get scanned in just like everybody else. And then one of the issues that happens across the country is the whole looping issue, right? And trying to figure out that. With the ID scanners that we're using, we're able to capture the information. The one thing that's important about capturing information is what's encrypted when you scan that stuff in. And typically on a license, from a CGIS perspective, which is more of a law enforcement term, is the driver's license number is what you encrypt, but the address and all that. So the goal is when someone checks in, if they've been in that day, it's going to pop up and let them know that they've been in that day. Now, there's privacy issues you have to be concerned with, state and local, and how you track all that, but there's methods and training that we put together to help train how to prevent that as best we can.
So you've got other stores that you've helped through this process in Massachusetts?
Yeah, we've got one that's just about to get their license. We've got 3 that have been approved already and getting ready to open. And we've gone through the process with the CCC. We have a relationship with the CCC, both through a regulatory perspective, because as my silent partner in my life, she's the regulatory side of our business, and we actually have the Massachusetts regs within our platform, and clients who actually map all the compliance against it. So all the policies, procedures, floor plans, labels, it's all connected. So when something changes, we know what needs to change and how it needs to change, and then the employees all sign off on the system inside the store. Policies, procedures, and compliance. So it's all tracked.
Finances. Recent studies indicate that there's approximately one out of every 5 Massachusetts adults have used recreational marijuana in the last 30 days. We expect to see 5 retail shops in Malden, so all of our numbers can consider that. We also considered the proximity of the casino, and the casino that just opened. That being said, our estimates, projections are projecting $13.4 million per year. That equates to about 400 customers per day, 40 per hour. So if you think about it, if we had 20 POS stations, 40 customers per hour, it should be fairly easy to get that many people through the store.
That seems like a lot of people, so I know you got your projections, but when do you see the most business during the time of day? I know you've got like long hours in your application, or 10 to 8 or something like that, but when do you see the bulk of people coming in?
Well, we find for the last 5 years that there's no rush hour. I mean, there's no everyone shows up in the morning with a cup of coffee type of thing. It's pretty spread out throughout the day. A Saturday might be busier than a Tuesday, but really it's
constant.
people come before work, lunch, after work.
I mean, it's sort of a busy area.
Yeah,
so,
luckily it's a pretty even flow.
okay, so you're thinking like throughout the day it's steady.
It's
not-
fluid, it's very fluid in all the locations.
And I like to think with 49 parking spots, if we're assuming 40 people per hour with those 49 parking spots, it kind of makes sense, it kind of goes hand in hand.
I mean, Eric, you surely thought about, as this business is going to mature in Massachusetts as more and more communities come online, right? The process is slow, you don't need to be told that, right? So have you thought about what happens as the market starts to become more mature and saturated?
Absolutely. My thought is the stigma is going to diminish. More and more people are going to get comfortable with it and not be scared of it. It's still a new industry. A lot of people are still against it. They still feel it's illegal. It is illegal federally, but they still don't want to take that jump. They're afraid what people might think of them, stuff like that. But as the years go on, I feel the industry becoming more like the alcohol industry. So I think over the years, I think in my projections, I might have increased maybe 2 to 5% per year. So I don't think that's an outrageous climb. And the wholesale prices, I think,
Well, the good
probably
thing for
gonna
retail
drop.
is the wholesale price is so high right now. It's actually going to be tough. You open right now, your margins are going to spin, but as more cultivators come online, that's gonna drop that wholesale price, and retailers are actually gonna be in a better position as time goes on in that way.
I think one of the key things is the experience. Like when you're in Malden, you go to a place you always go to because of the people are in it and that. Having the team that we do that's going to be just doing the training and really the education on the cannabis plant, because there's a lot of people that come in just curious, and having the right customer reps, you know, to educate and tell them that.
I think the thing that's going to separate Misty Mountain Shop from some of these other retailers too is the connections in the industry with all the cultivators that I'm going to be exposed to. I do plan to still do some engineering on the side, to still develop relationships with more cultivators and then be able to bring in their product. I do see it going in the direction of kind of like the craft beer industry, where some of these craft cultivators, some of these smaller guys, I'm going to help them get up and running and be able to showcase their product in my store. And I think that's going to bring a lot of people from all over Malden, from all over the state, and possibly from all over the world.
Going back to your 40 hour, here's a question for John. Is there a typical amount of time, other than people who pre-order, that
How long
customer
it
takes when they
takes?
walk in the door to when they walk out? Or
So
is it-
once, I mean, depending on the line, once you get to the POS station, it's gonna take you 5 minutes or less to put it on. It's just like you walking up to buy anything else in any store. If you know what you want, I'll take that and that and the other thing. Okay, here you go. Here's my money. Have a nice day. It's not anything more complicated than that. But for people who don't know what they want, it will take longer. Over time, though, once you've been in the store once or twice, 3 times, you're really going to you'll know the menu, you'll know what you want. We find that we help people out in 5 minutes or less.
How often is a typical repeat customer visiting the store?
Great question.
I don't know. I'd have to defer to John. I'd have to defer to John on, you have the state limit what you're allowed to purchase, right?
So yeah, that's what we're looking to say 12 times a day, you know?
You're going to have some regulars. You're going to have some regulars.
Right, and I don't know if the only way to track that info would be to have a loyalty program or a rewards program, which so
That's what he was about to say, he wouldn't do that.
That's why you're hired. Adding value already.
happy with the slide. All right, so we go to the compliance guy now.
So operations compliance, this has been our business for 3.5 years. We take it very seriously. One of the things that we do as a company, so outside of the on-site teams and what they do, we offer remote compliance services as well. So we actually do auditing during operations, and Misty can read the same way. We're watching transactions as they happen, the day deliveries happen, we're watching the monitors. We've developed a whole incident management process, no different than when something happens. We call them teachable moments. So when we have an issue happening with one of our employees, if we see that they're not wearing proper gear or doing something, we kind of grab a recording, send it out to the team, put it into the system, push it out as a training example. The other thing that I want to talk about that's so important is cash management. And not a lot of people talk about this. Debit cards and how much cash you're going to be coming in. So $13 million, and I think, John, you were saying like right now about half is usually debit cards because you can't do credit cards. So if you think about $6.5 million in cash coming in. So at all the registers, we'll have a system that we've deployed at other institutions. We're actually the only money being touched by the customer service reps is when they're giving change out of the till. Put the money in the machine, it counts it, checks it for fraud, drops it into a drop safe. And the management team is able to monitor that. As soon as the levels get up, they'll go out, open the drop safe, it goes in a sealed bag, serialized with how much is in there, gets dropped in our safe. Then with the financial institutions we've talked to here, there's a couple banks that are actually working in the business that we've already talked to. They grab it, and when we get our statement, we have the serial number at the top. So we're never really counting cash again. So we're really, it avoids employees the opportunity to think about maybe you expose a lot of money. So that's a big part of the business, and the on-site remote auditing for us. We don't live here in Malden. We don't live in Massachusetts. Our company is based out of Florida, but we travel all the time up here with the clients we have. So we have weekly, sometimes weekly audits when we come up. We'll do an on-site audit, unannounced, so that we're treating it just like with the CCC or potentially the regulatory side.
So that audits everything, it sounds like it's not just sort of compliance audits, but it's a bit of an operational audit.
Entire operations, from accounting to inventory to security. So when you think about this business, I mean, even health and safety audits, life safety checks, fire extinguisher and all that, a lot of people overlook those simple things. Air filters being changed out, right? We automate all that so it's all triggered to the system. So now what happens is when we have a risk issue, if we do have one, we're going to start an incident report, run it through our process, pull the video, pull the that, share it with the police department, something localized, and we've been very successful at that in the state, this state and other states that we operate. Do you want to add anything? The other, sorry.
Is there a platform?
We use a platform called PowerDMS, which is a platform used by law enforcement for the last 19 years. I came from that company. It's for document control, policy procedure, audit control, so we can pull up every version of a document in its history, show the changes, show who signed it, show the training. The reason we took it to Cannabis, I was an exec at PowerDMS, they didn't want to get into the marijuana business directly. So I convinced them to let us do it, and that was 3.5 years ago. So we really brought an operational and technology that's used in healthcare and law enforcement into this industry to help break that stigma of they're not compliance operations. It's been a big hit for us.
So when we talk about education and community services, really what we're talking about is our duty to be socially responsible. And we feel like we really owe that to the city of Malden. So this starts as soon as customers enter the lobby, where they are literally going to have educational resources at their fingertips, touch screens, pamphlets, educational videos playing. We are also going to have reminders of just current Massachusetts law and where to go if you're in a situation where you need help or you have substance abuse intervention. The introduction will be followed up with that one-on-one interaction that Eric referred to as our staff meets you as you're buzzed into the main area. We want our customers to be introduced to the cannabis plant. We want them to know and understand how it grows, the different strains, terpenes, the science behind extraction. And although we're not a medical facility, we really feel like knowing, having a clear understanding of those health benefits and the possible adverse reactions really just helps us with our goal of having really safe consumption by the customers. So understanding the human body just really helps with all of that, I think. So our layout offers space for the more in-depth conversations, like Eric said. There are going to be some people coming in that have never done this before, have no idea what they're jumping into. And myself and other staff that are trained will be able to sit down in more of a conversation area, to kind of go through that. We'll also have the ability to kind of close up shop, and we're planning on hosting on a regular basis, like using that retail floor and kind of transforming it to more of an educational platform. So that we'll host informational workshops for the community. Would like to do continuing education credits for nurses, social workers, other healthcare professionals. Really, we're in such close proximity to Mystic Valley Elder Services, Hallmark Health, Partners, all of those organizations. So that's really, what I'm passionate about. So really, that being said, we understand that this is also a new industry, right? So there's a long reputation that precedes us, and although recreational cannabis is legal on the state, it's not federally. So this can really complicate willingness and even ability to receive donations and partnership with a legal cannabis company, and really so to avoid any federal implications for organizations and even their board members. We have begun working on a partnership with a company out of Colorado called Can Make a Difference. And this agency has been around for a bit.
Good.
And I know, right? All the do-gooders.
Yeah.
So it's just more complicated than you think. I could contact an agency and they could say, yeah, sure, we're willing to work with you, but it's not that simple. There's board members, there's implications. So This company is national, and it's approaching the Northeast, looking for partnerships, which is great. They've done a great job of developing a system that actually helps these organizations. They can answer a few questions, end up getting vetted, make sure they're in good standings with the IRS, and it helps them really, getting donations from companies like Misty Mountain. So we plan on helping connect the organizations to them, and we'll even offer the link on our website.
So if that's, for instance, I was looking at your impact, like your community host agreement and, donations to the Lions Club or Malden Overcoming Addiction, is that what you're saying? It's hard for them to take the money because of the origin of the money being
Correct.
legal, federal?
Yes.
So that is basically.
So they will help guide them with that.
I wouldn't want to call it laundering, but that is that's an entity that's legally allowed to take them federally?
Well,
Or
so
what's
it
the difference
so it
between
all
that entity and
depends. It
Malden?
depends on their filing with the IRS. It depends on the amount of money that they are already getting from donations. There's certain triggers, that would be a higher amount, obviously would be more of a concern. And really their focus is on smaller companies, smaller organizations, which is ours too.
Can it make a difference? They came from the nonprofit world. And the whole reason they started the company was because there was an entity that wanted to donate $250,000 to a nonprofit. Nonprofit didn't want to touch it.
Right.
Right, it was cannabis. So he actually looked at all the nonprofits and does all that analysis and shows them and has a white paper, just like you're getting educated, educates them and their board. And the board makes the decision.
Right, okay. Because I actually read through this and I thought it was very well thought out and very localized. I appreciate this. Although the CCC is looking for communities for impact, Malden didn't ask that, for whatever reason, but it seems as though you guys would build some on.
Yeah, and you can log on to their webpage. It's pretty great. It's a lot of good information for cannabis, folks, and for the nonprofits. So, as Eric said before, we really believe in a community-first approach, and we want to work with the local organizations to educate and reduce the stigma of cannabis. So, we want to bring new and exciting ideas to the city of Malden and just really be a part of your community. That's super important to us. We'd welcome the opportunity to work with law enforcement, really to promote public safety, substance abuse, prevention, information, and just hope to build and strengthen those relationships by organizing local events, fundraisers. There's so many great agencies right here in the city of Malden that provide some valuable support. Malden Overcoming Addiction, the Wise, ABCD, there's really just a few. And I've already been able to reach out to a few of them. So, if this goes through and connecting with that can make a difference, I feel like that will really just kind of pull it all together. And really working together, I believe, and I'm sure you agree, we can just accomplish so much more. Thank you.
That's all we have for our presentation, so feel free to ask us any
Just
questions.
one thing before you, and I do apologize, I should have started this way, but I didn't, and so I should have introduced the two young ladies behind me. So Peg Pro is the ward counselor in Ward 1, which is where maybe you've met, or maybe you haven't, I don't know. But it's where your proposed location is within the city of Malden, and an important part of our process is having them understand. It just so happens that all the locations are either in Peg's ward, and to her left is the council president, who's also the ward council for Ward 8, you can see them, right? So those two councils happen to cover all the locations that all the proposed locations that are within, and so they've been sitting through it. So I wanted you to understand that they are here to be able to hear that feedback, because quite frankly, their feedback to us is important as we try to figure out, sort of who it is that's the best fit. A lot of this is location.
Thanks for coming out.
So sorry, I didn't want to just make sure I got
that's
that.
fine. I know we're running out of time, so I'm just gonna throw them at you. I saw your paper, it said 15 plus full-time employees. If you have 20 point of sales, I'm assuming you're gonna be.
Is that what it put, 15 plus?
I think so.
I'm thinking more like 30.
I read a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's very thorough, which I appreciate. Your operating procedures were hard to get through. I was like, man, this is really tough.
Welcome to cannabis.
But I read it all, so I think it said 15 plus, so I assume it was. Okay, but with management, I saw with respect to point of sale, you staffing all your point of sale, none of them beyond the checkout, right?
No.
I didn't,
Stop and shop. You go through the-
That's what I mean, yeah, self-checkout. 1/3 of your employees with the goal to be from Malden, right?
Correct.
That's your.
Well, I'm saying that's a minimum. I'm hoping we have many more than that. So we've discussed this a bunch of times. I'm thinking 30 employees, minimum 10. Like, I want to guarantee 10. Hopefully we get 15, 20.
And a diversity law, I'm assuming, given the spirit of the law,
Absolutely.
trying to encourage diversity. Okay. I have more other people on the
Keep going.
Go for it.
Any of your capital providers, did any of them take out loans or debt financing arrangements? Do you intend on having any leverage to working lines, revolving facilities, anything like that, or solving cash equity?
Correct.
Ivy May, I saw Edward Silver and Richard Connor. Are they going to be heavily involved or just at 5% and they're out?
Just fine.
Same thing with Shannon.
Well, they have some expertise in the construction industry, and I work with them in the construction industry. So
But their formal role was truly just as
for
a solicitor.
for Misty Mountain Shop, correct.
And are they your only potential equity providers, as in transferring stock? Like you will be the owner, there'll be no change of control from your control that you can foresee or plan on?
No, at this point.
So you plan to hold. I mean, there's what's happening on the state is there's a lot of people coming in and giving us a great face, and then they're changing control to the big pharma or other large companies from out of state. So I think.
What you see for a team here, where myself, Danielle, and Karen will be in the store on a daily basis. I'm not planning on selling any licenses or anything like that.
Is he physically gonna be like full-time employee?
Correct, yeah.
You still watch it remotely, it
Yeah.
sounds like.
Well,
Keeping an eye
yeah,
on
just
it.
gotta watch over. Yeah, Scott.
The facial recognition, is that part of the video equipment that you have, and then how encrypted is that? Does that get sent to law enforcement? And the little bit of literature I have in me is like, oh, I see facial recognition, that's good.
Does it say facial recognition?
Yeah, so it says cameras will have horizontal angle view of 82 degrees subject facial recognition of 50 feet, situation awareness.
This would be the security integrator, so that's something we would have. We have a contractor, Astronaut Security, so all of that technology, Karen will be working closely with him to determine which type of technology we're going to use. So that would probably be a better question.
I'm just curious what happens to.
So I don't think that, so facial recognition.
That's not facial
I think you're thinking of.
Just
I
because
think
you-
it's a creepy one.
Yeah, no, that's not, it's not gonna tell you who that person is.
Okay.
You're just gonna be able to
You're gonna be able to see
the
who they are.
face.
Thank you. I was
Gotcha.
standing by that. Traffic on commercial street, method sheet is gridlocked during rush hour, which is known as I travel every day to and from Boston. It's complete horribleness. It sounds like 10 a.m. start time probably alleviates the morning rush hour. You're acting rush hour between 4 and 6, and 6 is probably going to be miserable. As far as allocating resources for traffic management, if you have a tight turn into your parking lot, a tight turn out, that back and forth, I can imagine to be tight. I'm assuming you don't mind allocating resources for traffic management.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also plan on doing a traffic study. I know of a company in Wilmington that we've worked with in the past that we're happy to do a traffic study.
Yeah, I think it's probably more important to know that we have an expectation that as you get closer to the reality of what the location may bring, that you're working closer with the police department.
Oh, absolutely, right.
Because to some degree, it's all guessing.
I would foresee that we're going to have multiple details when we first open,
Right.
to try to control traffic, people in the area. You don't want anybody crossing the street, walking down the sidewalk, when people pulling in. So, definitely.
I just noticed the whole Sun Farm, John Gap, is there a relation?
Yes.
Okay, so whole family's involved?
They're opening a greenhouse in Misty.
Okay, so it's not a bad business partner.
Can I ask a silly question?
Absolutely.
Are you a Zeppelin fan?
You know, I we were gonna play it in the background when we walked in, but yes, that stems from the song Misty Mountain Hop.
What's Led Zeppelin album?
That song, believe it or not, is about a legalized pot rally that was in Great Britain in the 60s. That's where I got
Trivia.
I'd like to give you some credit for a well put together presentation.
Yes.
Thank you to all, some of them have worked hard to like follow through.
Thank you.
Nice
And
job.
very thorough.
I was gonna say the same, this is probably the most comprehensive group that deals probably with every possible issue. So my only concern is I was impressed by that was, is it a long-term commitment and not something we're here to kind of get this thing running and then but it sounds like you're all part of what looks like a.
We're in it to win it.
Well, quite frankly, right, so this is new to us, right? It can't be real new to both of us, so we're looking for folks on the other side of the table that bring some of the things that you've brought to the table that, bring some areas of expertise, right? So I think that I want to repeat what Dave said, which is the time you took just to put things together in a way that we could get through without having to sort of figure out where, what is where is appreciated, and the depth of the team that you brought to the table is as well. It's certainly clear to me, at least, and I think to others, the role that each person plays, and that's a lot of what this is about, is to really clearly know what everybody is doing so that we can figure out if all the lanes are filled, when the dust all settles, or if there's these enormous gaps. So.
One more. Nelson, the daycare that's two parcels over, they're in compliance with that buffer zone.
Yep.
Just because you're in compliance doesn't mean you're gonna get support because of the location of that, from the community or people or parents who use that location. So keep that in mind as far as.
I did sit down with the manager of ABCD,
Yes.
and I had a discussion with her, and she had no real objections personally, but obviously I understand that she doesn't run the whole company, and she'll have to discuss it with them, but we did have a discussion about it.
As far as outreach community meetings, it would probably, as long as everyone's on the same page, it's very close.
You'll see it.
And actually, I had done, years ago, early in my career, I had worked with a Head Start agency, so I'm pretty familiar with them, and I'd be more than happy to work with them on education and so on.
That's an important part of the process, is taking
Sure.
fear out of the room with neighbors, right? And
Right.
Like Janelle said, there's what's required and then there's what's right, and there's a lot of space.
And the customers too, if they're coming from Wilmington, have to walk by that parcel, so you're gonna be getting people walking with product or without product and cash going by to and from right in front of the gate.
Chief, are you good?
I'm very concerned.
So,
Do certain cultivators develop a following, like in the craft industry that you had kind of lined up as an analogy?
We'll see. I mean, there's so many brands out there that people in the cannabis industry, those dominant brands haven't shown up, so there hasn't been a lot of loyalty. It's mostly based on proximity. You know what I mean? I don't want to drive 20 miles. I just drive 2 miles to go to that shop if I like it. But I think that there will be a lot of, certain brands will emerge as winners here in Massachusetts as the industry evolves.
That's a great question. I wondered the same thing. If I'm going into your shop, am I looking for a particular grower who I know has a particular type of product?
Craft beer, I have friends that actually drive up from New York to go to Trillium to bring things back to
That's
New
what
York.
we're hoping.
Yeah, there's certainly that part of the clientele. There's that, and then there's people who don't care as much.
So can you tweak the product enough to make it like a craft beer?
We definitely want to compete on quality.
Yeah.
That's definitely how you want it.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly appreciate, I think, as we've said from multiple folks on the side of the table, the time you all took to, again, give us information to look at in advance, as well as just the opportunity to get some stuff that changed it at the last second. So we, it's important to know who's doing what and what exactly it is you're proposing. That's definitely clear to us. That's appreciated. We've asked follow-up questions. If you do have anything else that isn't follow-up to any questions we've had, if you could send it through Kathleen, and she'll make sure that we all get it. And again, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So if you all are ready, we'll get started. We'll start by doing introductions on this side of the table. So starting to my far left is Kathleen Benning-Hall, who's the clerk of the committee. To her right is Janelle DeVitz, who is a city council appointed to the committee and a local attorney. To her right is Diana John, who has been appointed by the mayor of the committee. Myself, Ron Hogan, as the chair of the committee. Over to the right is Nelson Miller, who's on the committee as the city's building commissioner. And to his right is the police chief, Kevin Molis. Also behind me is, on the right-hand side, the city council president, J.D. Seeger, who also happens to be the ward councilor for the location that you proposed. You probably already know that. And to her right is Peg Crow. Both these young ladies happen to be the city councilors for all the locations that have been proposed.
Right.
So they have the opportunity to sit down and hear all the proposals for us to get feedback from them. So this process really is simply all about trying to take what it is that you've given us in your application and to tell us a little bit more about it in person so we can get to know, most importantly, who it is that's going to be involved, the location, and why it is that you're an operator that we want to do business here in Malden. We've got a minimum and a maximum of 5 licenses that we're committed to issuing. But we're not just going to issue 5 right off the bat if there aren't 5 operators that meet what we think is the criteria for what makes sense for the city of Malden. So this is about getting to know you. We want to come out of here knowing who's doing what on this team, right? One of the frustrating things for us, I think, is confusion, where, you know, these 3 folks are kind of investors, and these 3 folks, we want to know who's involved, who's going to be around once things get up and running, where the money's coming from, and what the experience is that's being brought to the table by each individual member. So I'm going to turn it over to you to somehow get that across to us, and we're going to jump in and ask questions where you're not, okay?
That's great, thank you, appreciate it. And yeah, please feel free to just jump in and ask whenever you want. Thank you for inviting us to present to you today. Just start by introducing myself and then the rest of the team and the project. My name is Phil Silverman. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Vicente Cedarberg and representing MassMedicum Corp. So just sort of about me and my law firm. My law firm is the only national cannabis law firm in the country. That's all we do. We only handle cannabis matters. I work in the Boston office. We have offices in New York, Los Angeles, Florida, anywhere there is legalized marijuana, we have offices. In terms of Massachusetts, we have about 100 clients in the state, and we've worked with 100 cities and towns across the state in trying to sort of implement a local vision for what a marijuana company is supposed to be. We were very involved in the 2016 legalization campaign, helped write the laws and the regulations, in fact, and we sort of, believe that if you believe in the merits of legalization, and we do, then you also have to believe that this has to be done the right way. And that's kind of where we come in and how we fit into this whole thing. We don't just practice law, we set these companies up. We provide clients with partners, other operators from all over the country, consultants from the retail field, from the cultivation field, from the product manufacturing field, security field, banking, you name it. We set up the full swing of everything so that we can get these companies up and going. And then once we get it set up, we sit down and we work with the local community. We talk with the police chief and the fire chief, and we take the input seriously, okay? We're gonna do what you want here, because that's the only way this works, is if the local community buys in. Can't do something that is difficult enough given federal illegality unless you satisfy the people that you're working with in this community. And then once we, in fact, get the business up and open, then we switch over to the compliance side. That's what we really specialize in, making sure that the client is keeping all of the records. We audit records. We do sneak inspections on clients to make sure that they're not just doing the right thing when somebody's looking, but also when nobody's looking. That's what our involvement is here. So that tells you about me. Now I'm going to sort of tell you about the rest of the project. And I'll start by saying that I think MassMedicum is a little bit different than maybe a lot of the other places that you've been working with. And I can tell you that because, again, given all the clients that we represent here and across the country, they're different than just about anybody. The first place they're different, and this is probably more on a local level in terms of who you're dealing with, is this company actually has a little bit of an advantage over a lot of other companies because this company has its own cultivation site in Holbrook, Massachusetts. It's already up, it's already operating, and it's already growing. And the reason that's important is right now what you're in this industry in Massachusetts is there is not enough supply for the amount of demand here. And so if you can source your own product, you have a leg up on your competitors. If you can't source your own product, you're basically buying at extremely high wholesale prices and you're passing that on to your customers and you charge higher prices. I suspect that's most of what you're seeing. People who are a standalone retail somewhere, they don't have a cultivation or a product manufacturing site, or the other common model is a company comes in and they bring in kind of a partner who's already up and running, and that partner provides them some financing, and on the way back, they require them to buy their product again at some pretty significant wholesale prices. This company doesn't have that problem. Again, it sources its own product in Holbrook, and they'll pass those savings on to the consumer. It's right now growing the product that's going to be used in a dispensary in Amherst, Massachusetts, which is scheduled to open in November of 2019. Shortly after that, hopefully in the spring of 2020, they'll be opening a dispensary in Taunton, Massachusetts. And then if all goes well, we'd like to be opening here in Malden in August of next year. Again, not entirely sourced from Holbrook. You want to have variety, so you're going to go and buy some wholesale from other places. Any smart company that's in this business does that. But you do want to have that constant supply so that you can compete as best you can.
How much do you think would be savings because you have your own calculators?
It's a little hard to estimate that, but I would have to say over the course of a year, I think it could be $1 million, quite frankly, given sales figures. Once you get up to the $7-8 million in sales levels that I think we're hoping for after the first 3 or 4 years. But I don't want to. Whenever we start talking numbers, I hesitate because I think, and I'm going to get into this a little later, I think there's pie in the sky numbers being thrown around left and right in this industry, and I'll talk about that a little bit.
Can I just ask, so you mentioned the cultivation piece, and just tell me a little bit about the capacity of what you have as a cultivator against the existing stores that you mentioned on the medical side that are close to opening up, and the proposed store that you're hoping to open up here, and still leave you with excess capacity, or what are you able to?
Right now, there's about 3 grow rooms. About how many square feet is that, Jim?
There's 20,000 square feet of bloom light availability now, with another 80,000 feet that can be built out in the same facility. So there's more than 100,000 square feet that can be developed and will be over the next year or two.
But you're licensed just for the 20 right now, is that right? You'd have to go for.
No, this is medical.
For the site, so you can. There's anybody. I thought there was some limits on what you could do.
No, the medical side isn't limited in the same way that the recreational side is limited to the 100,000 square foot canopy. So again, right now you can supply the Amherst. You'd need to do a little bit more building out, I think, before you could get to the others. But that's sort of the planned rollout. Is you use a lot of those revenues that you're going to bring in from Amherst. It's going to allow you to build out.
Within the next year, we almost certainly double the production.
Yep. So that's a little bit about sort of the economic advantage, but I'm not going to say we're the only company in Massachusetts that's like that. There are other places that have grow facilities, but I think from what I understand of who we're competing with here, I think it's an advantage against a lot of those companies. But I think the thing that makes MassMedicum a little bit more unique than anybody, quite frankly, is sort of the vision and the way that this company was started. Most of the companies I think that you're seeing around in the competition here have a vision of this that I would call becoming a marijuana superstore. Okay, it's a large-scale retail type of business model, and that's great. I don't have a problem with it. I have other clients that's what they want to do. Okay, it's legal in Massachusetts, and I think it's a viable business model. I would tell you that it's not the only business model, and I think in terms of providing for the community, all of the opportunity that the marijuana industry can, I think there's another business model that you want too, and that's this. Because MassMedicum was founded for a different purpose. What we're aiming to be here in Malden is more of a neighborhood pharmacy, okay, with a focus on quality. And the reason we do that is really Dr. James Kernick here, who was the founder of the company in 2013. And he had a medical vision for doing this. Dr. Kernick is affiliated with really one of the premier hospitals in the nation here in Boston and one of the premier medical schools in the country as well. And what his business is creating medicine. If you go home tonight and you watch television, you will undoubtedly see a commercial for a drug that he was a co-inventor on. He's been doing this as a career and in a professional, scientific manner. And I think bringing that to the cannabis industry, quite frankly, is something that the industry needs, and I think it's something that benefits everybody. And so what he believes is that you can take this cultivation process, you can take this product manufacturing process, and even the retail, and you can apply all of the expertise that he would use in the pharmaceutical industry to the cannabis industry, so that you can produce scientifically superior products for medical patients that the medical patients that come here will want, because there will be medical patients that do come here. But you can also, there will be value to this for recreational as well, because they're going to see the superior quality of somebody that really knows how to do this the right way, in a superior medical way. So again, I know what we're really here talking about is the recreational side of things, because that's what we're licensing. But the reality of the industry in Massachusetts is there's going to be a lot of medical patients that come here. Okay? There's some questions about the viability of a medical program in Massachusetts, are people really going to continue to go pay money to doctors, pay money to get a registration card when they can just walk into a recreational dispensary and not have to do that? So we anticipate that we're going to be dealing with medical customers here. And I will note to you, the fastest growing customer sector in the industry in the United States right now, people over the age of 55 like myself. Most of them are probably not here for recreational use. It's the aches and pains and the other things that the news is telling them, you might want to try this, it might be a better solution than some of the other things you're being prescribed.
Let me just ask you a couple of quick questions. So you're talking about, as a retailer, would you only sell product that you cultivate and manufacture? Is that your model, or?
No, we'll wholesale from other places as well. You want to have, you can't produce every single type of product that you'd like to produce. It's just,
You have to specialize in something, and somebody else is going to specialize in something.
yeah, I mean, you can do a number of things, but you can't do everything. I think that's the point.
So within the part that you do manufacture, right? Because I'll admit that I'm not that smart about the different types of marijuana, but you said it, so I want to understand it. What is it that you do when you do cultivate? You've said to us it's a different level of product. It's a high quality product. It's a medical product. Tell me what that means and why that should be meaningful to us.
Can I do, if you'll allow me, because I'm going to have him tell you all about that.
I think he's going to confuse me. Right? That's why I was asking you. That's why I
But believe me, that's what we want to get across to you. So let me do this. Again, what we believe here is, doesn't matter if it's cultivation, okay? Doesn't matter if it's using medical grade product manufacturing. Doesn't matter if it means having a pharmacist who can actually assist customers about dosage, interactions, side effects, things like that. We can do this better, and that's really what makes this sort of more than just your average cannabis company. So let me introduce the team a little bit. Over here is Jack Swig. Jack's company's in-house counsel. He's got 35 years of corporate law experience with startup companies. Very valuable in what is essentially a startup industry in Massachusetts. Additionally, Lisa Silverman is the company's registered pharmacist, 25 years as a registered hospital and retail pharmacist. And Paul Oxford recently retired from the Massachusetts Department of Corrections as their Director of Investigations. Knows a thing or two about keeping things out that are supposed to stay out and keeping things in that are supposed to stay in. So that's the team. And now I'm going to sort of introduce Dr. Koenig, who I've talked about a little bit. As I do, I want to make one thing clear, because I do understand that there are, with a lot of companies in Massachusetts, there are questions about ownership of these places. I think this one's a relatively simple one. MassMedicum is a C corporation, okay? It is 100% owned by a company known as Grand Cru Medicinals, okay? Grand Cru Medicinals is 100% owned by Dr. Koenig, period. Okay, so I think that you've got to get that out to everybody, because the ownership structures of companies in Massachusetts. No disparagement to any other client. But it started with this nonprofit requirement in Massachusetts, which kind of messed everybody up, and so it's confusing. This one I think is relatively simple. So without going any further, I'm going to let Dr. Koenig speak and hopefully answer some of your questions. And if he doesn't do well, please talk to me, and I'll be happy to try to interpret.
Well, thank you. So actually, for those of you who might have been too busy to watch Mr. Mueller in front of Congress, but saying less seems to have been a forte of his, so I'll try not to confuse and say less and hopefully be clear. So as Phil has kindly said, I come from a conventional medical background. I've been in medical research throughout my career in conventional drug development. And my concern in the cannabis world is that there's a lot of talk and more smoke than light. And so what I feel is that there definitely are beneficial medical products. You may be aware that the anti-seizure medication, which comes from the CBD, the cannabidiol, which is the non-intoxicating, one of the non-intoxicating components of the cannabis plant. Actually, it's also an industrial hemp. That's now an approved medication for treatment of seizures, and it's actually safer and more effective than conventional anti-seizure medication. So there's a real advance that's occurred now just in the last few years in understanding that the cannabis plant has true medicinal capacity. You may be aware that there's been a drug that's actually been available in pharmacies since the 1980s, Marinol, which is actually pure THC, which has been available for treatment of patients with AIDS and cancer. It's actually a not very well accepted medication among the patients because it's an oral medication that actually has a very slow onset and actually lasts too long. And so the patients actually find that it's not as beneficial to them as having a fast onset and a more dosable product. So that's what I feel we can provide as a medical community to the patients by providing them something which is not smoked, because I think the smoking is actually the worst way to deliver the product, but through inhalers, something akin to something that an asthmatic might have, where you have a push on a button and you deliver a prescribed metered dose, and then you can do one dose, 5 minutes later you can do a second dose, and then you can titer the amount that you need for the indication. The other thing that we know is that cannabis is a very complicated plant, and there are literally more than 100 active ingredients in the natural plant. And the one that's most sought on a recreational basis, the THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, is what makes people high. Most of the other components do not make patients high, but like the cannabidiol, which is used, called CBD, which is used for the seizures, also is excellent for treatment of pain. And in countries like Israel, what they have found is that patients who are on morphine or opiates for pain, or chronic pain, cancer patients, if they're given the opportunity to have marijuana or opiates or a combination, they half the amount of opiates that they use if they have access to cannabis. And as you may be aware, the recent data show that in the medical and adult use cannabis states, there is a lower death rate from opiate overdose than there are in the states that do not have cannabis. And so, in contrast to what people feel that it's a gateway drug, it's actually more and more felt that it can be actually a prevention and a route to withdrawal. So what our hope is that we can provide a medical product, medical grade product to medical patients and to the adults who are looking for pain relief, appetite induction for patients with cancer and AIDS and other disorders, patients with multiple sclerosis. You may be aware that there's a company in Britain that makes the CBD that's used for the seizure patients. They also make a half THC, half CBD spray that you spray under your tongue, and it has a quick onset, again a metered dose. And that's approved in over 20 countries, including the European Union, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, for treatment of pain of multiple sclerosis patients, so neuromuscular pain. So there are a lot of indications that have been approved, very well researched. There's a lot of claims that have yet to be proved. Some of them, I'm sure, are not going to be proved, but our role is to try to produce a product that will be consistent from one harvest to the next, so that we're not dealing with something that you say, well, try this stuff, and then you come back next month and you get the same product, but it doesn't have the same impact. We can actually produce products in a highly dose measured manner, in a highly component measured fashion. So Phil mentioned that we're going to be producing, growing our own plants. We're also going to have an extraction facility for manufacturing individual components of the cannabis, so we can have vaporizer pens that can deliver 100% CBD, half CBD, half THC, 25, 75, 75, 25. We can have products that will be beneficial for a patient with multiple sclerosis, beneficial for someone who has a sleep disorder, who needs to have something that will help them relax in the evening, something that they can maybe still function in the daytime. Clearly, we don't want patients out on the highways when they're in an altered state, so we want to be as professional and provide information to the patients as Phil mentioned Lisa Silverman having a pharmacist. Actually, our first hire in the organization was to have a pharmacist. I felt if it's going to be a medical product, we should have someone who understands not only the cannabis products that we're going to be dispensing, but also the other drugs that the patients and because it started as a medical operation and when the medical licenses were all that was available in the state, that if a patient is on cancer medication and they also were using the cannabis for appetite enhancement, that they'll understand not only what they're taking for their cancer, but how that will impact them when they add cannabis to it. So we think that we can actually produce highly characterized, highly consistent medical grade products. And frankly, I think my vision, I may not be here to implement the vision, but if we could come back in 25 years, we're going to find that it's going to be as consistent and as accepted as aspirin or insulin or other drugs that are in the conventional pharmacies, because we will have products that multiple sclerosis patients will have, that cancer patients, that AIDS patients will use in a highly consistent fashion.
So I have a question, and excuse my ignorance, but generally I'll learn here. So you're producing medical grade marijuana out of your, is it Taunton?
Holbrook is where the
Holbrook.
production.
Can you distribute to adult use for adult use purchasing? So I completely agree with, the medicinal value of cannabis and the goals in the future for folks to use it in such a manner. If I'm Joe Smith off the street and I walk into your dispensary in Malden and I just want to get high, I really don't care what your pharmacist says, unfortunately. Will you sell to those individuals too, or is it just going to be medicinal users or folks who come to you and say, I do have a medicinal issue, I didn't want to register and put my name on a list, but can you help me? Like, what would you?
So I would defer to Phil on the regulatory side,
Listen,
because the answer is
on the regulatory side, medical, if you were solely a medical, this isn't a medical license, which you can actually wholesale to a recreational company. That's fine, but in this particular place, this is a recreational facility. But as I said, you are going to see medical patients come.
Totally.
So and we intend to.
Sorry, the difference between the recreational and the medical is, if you have a medical license, you can get a more concentrated product. So for somebody that has, intense pain or PTSD, and they do get a medical card, they can get a higher,
access
to more concentrated,
Yes.
to a much higher dose.
Right.
Than if you're just walking off the street, you're not gonna be allowed.
But both would be clients or both would be customers.
No question.
Here.
Oh, yeah,
that's
they could come in without, just as a record, they would, as long as the concentration.
We believe, just as a matter of branding, we think that if you can sort of be the people that everybody recognizes, has the higher scientific background and the better knowledge of how to do this, that your recreational users
So
will
you're
come.
going to market yourselves as sort of the medical guys, I guess.
With Dr. Koenig being the founder, it would be hard not to,
Right.
certain level.
Well, it's true. There's a lot of different, I have family members that have severe rheumatoid arthritis, and they don't want to put their name on the list for other reasons. But
You're absolutely
yeah, I get it. I just want to
And
make sure that.
I have family members who say, I don't want my insurance company to know
Right,
that
or
I
I
have a
own-
medical
right,
issue.
that would be-
Whatever we
right.
make will be made to medical grade. And we just say a little bit
Please.
about Holbrook.
Please.
The Holbrook facility is growing in a way that very few people are. We have modular clean rooms that we put together, which are the same clean rooms that pharmacists and drug companies use. We have a special air conditioning that pumps in CO2, filtration, we can wash the rooms down. There's no chance that you can take contamination from one room and get it to another. You have a large grow and there's a contamination, whether it's aphids or whether it's mold or mildew, it's going to spread throughout. But everything is confined to a particular grow. And we see that, as Jim said, on the horizon, I think there's going to be regulation. And our feeling is we were making medicine, let's make it the way that medical companies do. And we'll already meet the standard when the feds decide to step in. So all of our stuff is made that way, and we can show you pictures.
So one thing, I guess, first a statement, I was right. But secondly, and I think I'm asking a version of what Joe was asking, which is, can you serve both masters, right? Because I guess what it comes down, well, I guess, can you do it without intimidating or the sort of the non-medical user, right? Because clearly your passion comes from the medical side, right? And yet, you know, we've got a limited number of licenses. We want to make sure we've got retailers that are maximizing the market that does exist. So
I think you sort of have to understand the profile of the non-medical user. They're going to love this, okay? It's kind of like people that like fine wine, that they like the, I'm not sure what the word is, but it's sort of a higher profile of a product. They like to feel that they're using something that's better than what other people are using. So they're going to love this. And we're not here to sort of portray ourselves as the science nerds doing marijuana, but there's a bit of a benefit. We think that.
Well, you failed.
We think that there's a benefit to saying, if you had gone around to Colorado like Dr. Koenig and I did a few years ago and saw the way some of these places grow things and just sort of the lack of understanding of how to do this in an industrialized manner the right way, you'd realize that we'd all be a lot better off whether you're a medical patient or you're a recreational use consumer. We'd all be better off if the standards were raised as to how this gets done.
So recreationally,
yeah,
a business can decide
yep.
to sell a product that a consumer would say is on the lower end of quality and on the higher end. For example, you go to a liquor store,
yep.
there is a glass enclosed case
yep.
that has a $1,000 bottle of single malt scotch.
Yes.
But I could buy a $20 bottle.
Yes.
The same definition of scotch, but there are varying levels through the process by which it was made, its age, the ingredients, and the expertise of the distillery.
Correct.
So this license gives anybody that has a recreational sale license the professional ability to sell an inferior, well, a product at a lower end of the scale or the higher end of the scale, right?
Well, yeah, but again, I think what you're right.
Because he's describing something commendably.
Yes.
That is at the higher end of the scale because the process by which it is made is done with greater care and preparation.
You'll hear a great many people come here and tell you, well, we know how to do this better. And everybody tries to brand themselves, and they say, and when you go into one of these places, it's not just, well, here's the marijuana flower, and you pay $5,000 a pound for that, okay? It's, here's this type of strain at $2,000 a pound. Here's this type of strain at $4,000 a pound. Here's the really expensive stuff. It's all, there's a number of different types of products here that different people will want. And some of it we think is expertise. Others of it, quite frankly, I think is branding. Like anything else you see out there, people come up with ways to sell things that maybe aren't quite what they say they are, but people are going to do.
But in this case, if somebody were to walk in and articulate a specific medical issue that they were seeking help by,
yep.
there is a product line that you would direct them to based upon your analysis of the efficacy of that particular product as opposed to
or
just...
steer them away from.
Okay.
Because as Lisa said, if you had somebody come in that has an anxiety issue and is taking anti-anxiety medicine, as Jim will tell you, nobody's died ever using marijuana, but a lot of people do end up in the emergency room having a bad reaction to a dose. Get somebody with PTSD and give them a high THC product, and they may be having flashbacks and maybe not very good. But we do have to compete on cost with other people. So it's not like what we're selling is going to be twice as expensive. We have to compete with everybody else in cost.
If maybe, I don't mean to be crass, but I'll give you an example. So my brother and I actually both trained in Colorado before marijuana was legal in Colorado. It's like you tell people, I'm a newcomer to Massachusetts. I've only been here 50 years. But my brother has maintained a condo in the mountains in Colorado, and he spent summers there. And he went into a recreational marijuana dispensary there, and he asked for advice about what's good stuff. And he was given something that he said, you know, when I was young and it wasn't as characterized as it is now, I took this stuff and it made me laugh, it made me high. He said, this stuff, it just made me, gave him what's called couch lock. He said, you know, I didn't find it pleasant. So what you want is something that you say, if you want something that will help you relax and you want couch lock, then you want product A. And if you want something that's going to make you elevated, then you're going to want product B. And you want to be able to get the same product this month and next year and not get something that you say, well, this stuff was great, give me more of that. But it's not the same. And I can tell you that in many organizations, if you go into the same cultivation site and you harvest it 5 times in a year, it will not have the same cannabis profile from one harvest to the next. But we can extract product and make a vaporizer pen that will give you the same impact on day 1, on day 30, on day 330. And that's the kind of consistency that I think that the customers do appreciate. And certainly in states like Colorado and California that have longer experience than Massachusetts, there is an appreciation of that. And the patients understand where they can get the product that meets their needs. So it's not merely price. Clearly price plays a factor in it. But it's also knowing that the product that you got last time, I'm going to be able to get it again.
So as you think of this market, how much of this market do you think that, I'm going to call it normalization, right? You're somehow able to take the product and normalize it from, you know, from each time that you're making, right? But how much of this market is that important to from your perspective versus the folks that are in there looking, you know, for a product to get high, right? I mean, what?
I think those people want this too. They want to know what they're doing. If that's your goal, you don't want to, you know, go so overboard that it becomes uncomfortable and not what you're looking for. So you want to know, all right, if I take 3 puffs of that, that's what I need, and no more than that, because that's not what I need. So, you know, I think it's if you look at the products that are out there, people are trying to do this. They're just not doing it as well as we think we can do it. If I can go on, sort of talk a little bit now about the property itself. 616 Broadway is where the property is. And again, what we're talking about is sort of this neighborhood pharmacy. The building there is 2,500 square feet. Quite frankly, the building and the site need a little bit of updating so that we can make this sort of a comfortable setting for customers, patients, etc. The company's planning on spending about $750,000 on renovating the building and the site. You can see that our architect put a big thing up here with signage. I do not expect a huge sign like that. That's really not what the industry does. The idea is to be discreet. My guess is what you'll see is a much smaller sign right here, just so people know that they're at the right place. We worked with the local, the city on the permit. It's not going to be anything. Obviously, regulations don't allow you to have neon signs. They don't allow you to have marijuana leaves, things like that. It's going to be discreet, low key. Next thing I'm going to turn you to is on your package is zoning. This property is zoned correctly in the marijuana overlay district. We think it fits pretty well with the others. I know there's a liquor store nearby, sort of along that vein. A lot of people think of it sort of that vein, or a pharmacy. Here's the site. 12,500 square foot parcel. It's at the intersection of Broadway and Bayard, and access into the facility is actually here through Bayard. The zoning requires 10 parking spaces. This site has 16 with a handicap space as well. There's also 2-hour parking on Bayard Street right next to the site. And I want to talk about parking a little bit and sort of the realities of what's required and what we have. I think everybody saw things about 8 months ago when we saw those first recreational dispensaries open up and we had traffic jams and parking issues. I would caution everybody to understand those were the first 2 dispensaries east of the Mississippi, and everybody east of the Mississippi was coming to see it. A lot of people from New York, from what I understand, were visiting Northampton in particular. A lot has changed since then. We now have 20 more dispensaries that have opened up, and you haven't seen any of those problems. We anticipate within a year, when this comes, you're going to have about 100 more dispensaries in Massachusetts, and in 3 to 4 years, you're probably going to have 300 or 400 of these in Massachusetts. And we know from our clients who are in Colorado, California, Washington, Colorado in particular is about the same size as Massachusetts, about 1 million less people, but they have a few more dispensaries than we actually will have here. And you just don't see these types of parking problems. This sort of is more in the nature of a small convenience store, is what it ends up being. Nonetheless, we want to sort of take a cautious approach to this. And so what we're trying to do is, first of all, make sure that all of those 16 spaces are reserved for customers and patients. So employee parking, all off-site. We're talking to some of the neighbors about having off-site parking. We're hoping it's within walking distance. If it's not, we will park where we need to, and we'll shuttle our employees in. We're not going to use those spaces for employees. We want them all available.
You don't have anything like that?
Not just yet, no. But I'm comfortable. We've made these arrangements all across the state with a lot of neighbors. They're happy to accept our money to provide off-site parking. So that's what we would do. The other thing that we do, and this is part of the reason why a lot of the companies that have opened, you haven't seen these problems, we sort of do a 30-day opening plan. And what that entails is, first of all, we start appointment only. Okay? We don't just let the public come. We put it on the website. You must make an appointment. You won't be allowed in without an appointment. And that's been very successful in sort of stemming the flow. And then what we do after that is we would leave it in the hands of the police chief, and we would probably say, what do you think? Do you think we need to continue this? If we do, we do. I can tell you recently, one of our clients opened up in Amherst, Massachusetts. After 3 days, the police chief said, you're okay, don't worry about it, you don't need to do that anymore. The other piece of that that we do with the appointment only is we have a parking attendant. We also have a police detail early on, but we have a parking attendant that we would probably place right at the entrance here. To the extent that the parking space is filled up, the attendant would ask people to park on Baird Street and the on-street parking. So that's sort of how we control it. There are other methods that we can use. There are methods if you get particularly busy. It's kind of like, it's got a company called QMinder that does a lot of restaurant applications you may have seen where you let people know, we can't have you here right now, we're on appointment only, or we'll call you on your phone when we have room for you. So we can, and we're happy, quite frankly, if we were to be in a situation here where the chief said, geez, you've got a lot of people that just seem to want to be where you are. If we had to stay appointment only off into the future, it is not the worst thing that ever happened to a company that you were so busy that that's what you had to do. You could do plenty of business that way.
That's appointment only means I come in at 2:15 and Janelle comes in at 2:30. Are you planning on anything like online sales where I look at your menu?
Sure. Yeah, there'll be an express line. Your average visit is anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. If you can do an express line, that tends to be the 5-minute. But yeah, we would do that as well. It's just about every dispensary doing that.
But we'll be able to serve 6 customers at a time. So it's not like in a 15-minute period, it wouldn't be one person every 15.
Yeah. Probably a little bit more.
Which is why we
than
have
that,
the
actually.
16 parking spaces.
Yeah.
Relative to your parking in your site,
Sure.
So it is in the overlay district, so obviously the residential buffer has to apply, but it is one handful of parcels within that district that
Yep.
has a residential building right next to it.
Yeah.
So do you have any plans on any kind of natural buffer in between your building and that property to kind of
So
buffer them from the activities?
are you talking about sort of the rear house?
Yeah, the house right next to it on
Sure.
Baird Street.
I mean, listen, if landscaping would do the trick, we'd be happy to do that. If a fence is something that the neighbor would prefer. My assumption is that this is something we deal with at the permitting stage, but we're happy to do that. I mean, it's every time I get into one of these situations with my clients, we have to satisfy the neighbors, and sometimes they want a fence, sometimes they don't want a fence, sometimes they prefer landscaping. We'll go either route. There is landscaping planned. We'd like to make a little bit more of a nice visual effect in the front. There's landscaping planned here, on Broadway here, all the way around here. You can't have big trees there because the state regulations don't want you to have anything that somebody might be able to conceal yourself behind. But you can do very attractive landscaping to make it a more attractive site.
I believe the site also right now has access off of 99, so.
Yeah, we wouldn't be looking to do that. I think that road, based on my visits, is heavily traveled enough that I don't think you want to create any kind of a problem there. So
Possibly a traffic study to see if the effects of coming off 99 were less of an impact than people parking on Bear Street.
we're happy to conduct that as
Yeah.
well. Sure. All right.
You said serve 6 customers at a time. Are you thinking 6 point of sale stations?
I actually think when we get to the fourth limit is 8 right now, so I think you can actually serve more than that
Okay.
and have other customers in the waiting area. So it's not, but easily you could do 6. All right, I don't know. Let's go up to the floor plan right now. So, and I think you've got a picture of this as well in your materials. So basically, the way this works, this is fairly uniform for anybody that you're going to be dealing with here in Malden. Your entryway is here. Nobody sets 1 foot in this building without showing an ID outside. You can't get into the building without doing that. You get buzzed into what we call an entry waiting area. What Paul will tell you is that's a sally port from the corrections environment. You can't go further into the sales area and get at any product without showing your ID a second time here at a security desk, and you will have to get buzzed in again into the sales area here. There is a consultation room here. Your first visit, we'll talk about this a little bit in a minute, but your first visit is a lot of patient education because we need to explain to people what the rules are. No on-site consumption. You can't go and drive after you do this. So we have a room for patient consultation. Sometimes people prefer to just have the sales consultant that they're working with do that as they're walking them. And it's sort of a one-on-one thing. When you get in here, you're met by a sales consultant. So once you come in here, the sales consultant will meet you, talk to you, give you that patient education if it's the first time. There are displays of the products, and you can see the point of sale stations up here. There's actually 8 of them right now that are set here. You'll conduct your transaction. The way that works, you'll tell them what you want. The order is actually fulfilled in the back here, okay? And it comes through a window so that nobody's really able to get at it. And the sales consultant gets it, you make the sale, and the person exits, again, back through the sally port. So we have complete control of access and egress from the facility. Facility's going to operate from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 9, Friday through Sunday, 21 years of age and older, the only people we serve here, and we strictly abide by the limits of the CCC, 1 ounce of flour and 5 grams, 5 grams of concentrate.
I know the focus is on smoke-free methods, but you also have, I'm assuming.
Oh, sure. We have the plants for unextracted as well as extraction.
Got it.
So now to just talk, one of the next pages is customer education. I mentioned the first visit. The first visit, there's an intake process, meet the customer, and again, it's so important. One of the first things we talk to people about, and it's important to the neighbors as well, is that there is no on-site consumption, and you can't just walk out of here and use it, walk 2 blocks away and use it out of it. We warn people. I'm going to get into the security and tell you all of the cameras we have everywhere. But we tell people, if we catch you doing that, we'll notify the local authorities. We can't have that at this facility. It's, again, from a compliance perspective, it's just not a way to run this business. So we're really strict about that, and we talk to people about that immediately on the education process. And then we go over the other, things, just sort of about the products themselves, dosages, strains, different administration methods, whether it's a vaporizer, whether it's a topical cream, a sublingual spray. We explain all these different things, the positives and negatives, so that they can compare and really learn about this and what's best for them. The other thing that actually we're going to do with customer education is Dr. Koenig is actually going to be sort of providing on every month or two updates on what the latest technologies are and what the latest news is in the cannabis front, at least from the medical side mostly. We just think it's important to use that expertise and provide people with as much information as we can, so that's a part of it too. Next I'm going to talk security. That's always on the minds of people. I can't obviously go too far into the security in a public forum. I know these are being videotaped, but we would tell you, first of all, whatever plans we have, they'll be presented to the police chief, and quite frankly, whatever his comments are, that's what we do. We understand that you have knowledge of the local community that's, quite frankly, infinitely better than ours, and so we're going to satisfy you first and go from there. But as a general proposition, it's sort of a layered design where there's multiple things so that somebody that had ill intent here is going to have to get through multiple different sort of barriers before they could ever actually get to any product. So, for example, I already talked about the Sally Port. This is a limited access facility, but it's even limited within the facility. So if you have somebody, for example, that is charged with greeting people at the door, they're not going to have an access card that lets them get back into the secure vault in the back of the facility. Okay? They have no need to be there, and there's only two people, the manager and the assistant manager, that are going to have access to that. The entire facility is limited access in that sense. You have cameras, you have exterior cameras, you need a 360-degree view around the facility so you know who's coming and going. The interior, every door, every window has a camera, and every room where marijuana is handled or stored has a camera. In addition, the alarm system, you've got a primary system, duress alarms, panic alarms. You've also got a backup system in case that initial one is compromised. And in the event of a power outage, there's a generator. It has to be able to run, I believe it's 4 hours at a minimum under state law. So heavily alarmed as well, and that's monitored 24/7 by the alarm company. The other thing that you have is what's called seed to sale tracking. One of the concerns that you have from a compliance standards, you want to get rid of the possibility of internal diversion by one of your employees. So this product is constantly inventoried into an inventory system and weighed, so you know everything is barcoded, every single product you have. So that product if a product that you had last week is missing, or if something that weighed 3 ounces last week only weighs 1 ounce this week, the inventory system alerts you. Then you go to the cameras that I mentioned. You have to keep the footage for 90 days. You're going to find out who's responsible, who took the product, and they're terminated immediately. There's a no tolerance policy with respect to termination. That's CCC regulation. We don't play games with that.
Can you talk about just as relates to security product delivery, how that's being handled in a secure way?
Sure.
Where it's coming in?
Sure.
I mean, this product coming in is money going out, right? So it's a tight site. There's not a lot of, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, right now there is a sort of a temporary garage in the rear. And I think what we would do is we would fence that in so that a vehicle with the product can come in, pull in. These vehicles are generally small Sprinter vans. It's not a big truck, anything like that. And a delivery generally takes less than 5 minutes. You're talking about a couple of totes, basically, is how you deliver the product. You pull in, fence closes behind you, and goes. There's a door right here, comes right in, and that's the extent.
And the vault is
Yeah, it goes right into the secure vault, which is right here. So there's your door in, and there's your vault, right into the back.
And we have on the vault, takes 2 people, just like evidence rooms. You leave one person, you'll have stuff missing. Take 2 people to go in there. They have a certain code that they so go.
How many deliveries a week?
You want to minimize it, obviously, because the deliveries are sort of the one aspect of this that you have a little bit less control over. So the vault, fortunately, is big enough to allow you to only hopefully do this once or twice a week.
And delivery outside of normal business hours, so that you're not going to interfere with, you're not going to have patients in the parking lot at the same time as the delivery guy.
We do it randomly. We don't want to have a set time when we're coming in. And also the vehicles, they have cameras on the vehicles, and they have GPS tracking. So with our cultivator site in Holbrook, we constantly in contact with them, there's no stopping. When they're coming, they come in right here, and we can monitor where they are.
So like, you know, business hours are Monday, 10 to 8, so they would be delivering at 9 a.m. maybe.
Maybe, early, later,
Oh.
it happens at all times.
Try to avoid traffic as well.
But that's tough.
I agree.
Um,
6 a.m. on Saturday.
Sure, so,
And the vehicles don't have any signage on them, so you're not gonna see that, okay, it's a, but not to say that somebody would say, do surveillance and say that's the type of vehicle that's delivering it. We try to mix it up when we could, but we haven't, we can't keep buying vehicles, so. But we don't put signs on it, hey, for cannabis, no, sure.
So on the cash side, the good news about that is that there are several banks in Massachusetts, unlike what you're seeing in some of the other states, that are actually willing to work with these companies. So we have relationships with all the banks. This group has been working with Century Bank thus far. But there's a couple of others. Gardner Federal Credit Union, I think, is doing it. It's a bank called Bay Coast down on the South Shore that's doing it as well. So there are actually debit card options right now, so you can minimize the cash and we're taking advantage of that. When we do have cash, it's armored car pickup. That's just sort of standard for the
How about
industry.
internally in the facility?
Internally in the facility, the cash, comes off the floor and it's stored in the vault. It has to be stored separately, sort of in its own safe, basically.
And there's other type of devices that they have also too, is where you can get the cash and go right into the state. So someone comes in there and tries to do a smash and grab and come in there, it's gonna be very difficult getting out of there. It's not gonna be worth it. You don't have enough time. That's why we want to make sure we have all our access controls, we have burglar motion alarms, glass break, if we have any glass there. So constantly starting an alarm, something's going to happen. So we're layering. It's not someone can come in here and just come in here and take it and get out. It's going to take some time. So that's what we call a professional to come and respond to it. And our office is first for security staff will not be on.
So
That's the professionals.
As Paul very well knows, actually, the greatest vulnerability is actually when the vehicle's on the road, because you're going to have many thousands of dollars of product not surrounded by cameras and walls, although there's internally there's the cameras and we will be in communication. So it's actually the transport which is actually the most vulnerable aspect of the problem.
Right. Just finishing on the security, we do have on-site security personnel during business hours, non-business hours, 24/7 monitoring. And you should also know all employees are background checked. That's a requirement of the CCC. I want to get to the page where we talk about benefits to the city of Malden. We anticipate about 12 to 16 jobs from this facility. And these are good jobs. Somebody that does well at these jobs is going to be able to advance in this company. So there's a lot of opportunity through that. We would be executing a host community agreement. We would be assuming that what the city's going to want to see is the standard sort of 3% impact fee from that. Happy to pay that. And also there's a 3% tax associated with that. Now we're at the point where I wanted to talk sort of about these projections as to how much money we're all going to make from this.
Before we get there, just for your employees,
Yeah.
I'm assuming, the gentlemen aren't going to be day-to-day manager, so your intent would be to hire a on-the-ground manager full-time?
Yeah, so you'll have Lisa really is sort of overseeing the three. So she's going to be there, at each of these dispensaries that we have, probably 2 days a week, 1 or 2 days a week. And then you're going to have an actual manager, in each particular facility on a day-to-day basis. They each have their own. So that person is the manager for that facility. So it's the type of thing where we're going to give the police chief the phone number of that person.
Well, it's just a little different because the other groups that we've been seeing, the people who will be there on the ground day-to-day managing are also there, so we know who they are and who the touch point person is. So I just, obviously this is a different kind of applicant that
Sure.
you establish.
Yeah, I mean, the way we do it is we like to, prior to the actual opening, we like to sit down with the police chief, and for that matter, we like to have another community meeting where we meet with all the neighborhood, we introduce the people that are actually going to be there, introduce Lisa. I'll be honest with you, I spend a lot of time with my clients at these places, so I'll be there We just feel like you have to.
And I noted a 30% goal of Malden residents as far as hiring.
Sure.
And do you have a diversity goal, just given the spirit of the law? And
Yeah, I mean, so I'll talk a little bit about that. You want to see the same proportion of people in the neighborhood. That would be the general goal.
And Malden being heavily diverse,
that's the idea. That's the idea. So in terms of, back to sort of the host agreement and the amount of funds, I see people, thinking we're going to sell $12 million out of these places. Maybe they'll get that high. It's great if they do. The average in Colorado, I think, is about a little over $3 million per retail store. I think you're going to do better here because you're not going to have as many of these places here. And I think, again, I think for a company like this, our projections from years 1 through 5 raised from about 3 million to 10 million. I think there's an assumption that, for example, if Malden were to be allowing delivery at some point, we will see people from other communities, especially the medical patients, that say, we really like their stuff, and they might like deliveries, and I think there's some real potential. So that's how you get up to that higher number. But I hope everybody does well. I hope people do get $12 million a year. That'd be great for them, great for the city, but I just think we should all sort of calm down about that. I'm not sure that's entirely realistic. The other benefits, again, to the city, and to me, by the way, I think this is one of the top benefits, is that these people have access to independently tested product. This is not stuff from the streets that you don't know what's in it. I think that is a real benefit. Last page we're going to talk about is the consistency of community values and sort of what we intend to do for the community. We've spoken to several organizations, Bread of Life, Housing Families, Baird Foundation, and Malden Overcoming Addiction. These are great organizations from what we can tell. They have to decide. Not every organization wants to get involved with a marijuana company, so they would need to decide. And quite frankly, we don't really have enough knowledge just yet to say this is who we should work with. What we have done in a lot of cases is, as part of our host agreement, we set up a community outreach board. And we asked the city to tell us, give us 2 people that sit on it, and we appoint some people, and we'll make a commitment of something, $15,000, $25,000 a year at a minimum. And we're going to donate it to that board, and those people are going to decide where it goes. So it may be one of these organizations. It may be that the neighborhood says we have a playground project, and we were hoping maybe you could donate the money to that. We're all ears. We really don't feel like we can come in here and sort of tell you here's where the money should go. I think we'd like to listen a little bit there before we tell you that. Similarly, and I think it's sort of part of this, you're probably all familiar with the fact that the state has this requirement that you have a plan to impact communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. I think it's a great idea, but I think they've sort of dropped the ball in a sense. They've designated 13 communities, I think. One of them is Amherst, Massachusetts, okay? One of them is Mansfield, Massachusetts. Why are they on there? Because Amherst has a lot of college students who get arrested for this, and Mansfield has people that go, I think, to the entertainment center there, and the same thing happens. I am not quite sure that that qualifies as such a community. I also suspect that this community has people that have been impacted, and so what we'd be looking to do is sort of use this community relations board to try to do that here. If it's not technically a community that's been disproportionately impacted, there are certainly people here that have, and we'd like to find ways to work with you to assist those people as part of this as well. So that's our presentation. If there's anything else we can tell you, please ask. We're happy to talk.
Can you apply to any other cities in Massachusetts?
Right now, we're already involved in Amherst and Taunton with retail, and this would be the third, and we can only have 3.
So you don't have any others that you're simultaneously pursuing in the first one?
We are not. We are not. There's kind of a nice dispersion here right now. We have South Shore with Taunton. We have sort of out west with Amherst. This would be sort of a little north of Boston, kind of a nice fit for us.
So, as I understand it, Lisa's going to be responsible for daily retail operations of the business. Do you have plans to hire a consultant or anybody that's actually run a retail cannabis
Oh,
store?
yeah.
to consult?
We have a number that we're talking to. The issue for us is we need to do it. We want somebody that sort of has a little bit more expertise on the medical side, or at least understands that in addition to the retail side. But the purpose of it is to get somebody that understands the retail. Quite frankly, the retail aspect of this is pretty simple. Learning the strains, learning the administration methods, that's not the hard part. The hard part is the compliance part, and that's what a pharmacist does. The Controlled Substances Act is every bit as stringent as what we're dealing here with the regulations, and so we're comfortable on that side. But we are going to be bringing in people. We have my firm has a number of clients who come in as consultants, and they sort of work to set up retail to make it, a nice atmosphere for people and such. So
And they can hang around long enough till the
Oh,
training
yeah.
wheels come off.
you get it up and going. Yeah.
But so just as, it's what I refer to as the front of the house and the back of the house. The back of the house is the pharmacy, and that's where the pharmacist will be in charge and training the individuals on how to deal with the dispensing of the product, the monitoring, the compliance issues, and any issues that the clients have with questions that they have about the product. So that expertise, which would be overarching on the whole operation. And then in terms of the product lines that we would want to have and how the people who will be interfacing mostly with the patients, the front of the house people, that's an expertise that the Vicente Cedarburg folks will help us identify people who have that expertise to supplement what we have as a pharmacist, because Lisa has both retail and hospital pharmacy experience, so she understands the retail side, at least from the back of the house.
Can you talk a little bit about your capital funding as a progressive treatment solutions?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have, so the way the funding, Dr. Koenig has mostly funded this himself. We do have two people that have loaned, or two groups that have loaned money, Cornerstone Income Fund, and these two groups, PTS. They're lenders. PTS has expertise in the industry. They would like to have more involvement with us. Whether we go down that road or not, we'll see.
They strictly went to medical.
They operate in Illinois. And they would love to become a part of this in some capacity. We'll see. There's a lot of companies. What I can tell you is our phone rings off the hook with people still trying to get into Massachusetts and become part of Massachusetts. So we have a lot of people to choose from.
Strictly just lending you the money. Is this the most you're going to get out of these folks? Or?
It depends. It's conceivable that there'll be more. We may work with other lenders. There are a lot in the industry, quite frankly. That's the other good news is that it's opened up here. It used to be you couldn't find anybody to lend money into Massachusetts because everything was required to be for profit. It's much better now. So.
What's the leverage profile?
It's the amount of debt. It's approximately, with this, what would it be, about $5 million?
More.
A little bit more than that.
Close to 6.
Yeah, $6 million.
Unfortunately, it's very expensive to get up a grow facility, a manufacturing facility, and then the retail on top. So we focused on the manufacturing and production side because you have to have product before you can set up the retail.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a vertically integrated company like this, and you're looking to put in a 100,000 square foot cultivation facility, you're talking at least $10 to $15 million. So it's an expensive proposition.
Chief, do you have anything else?
All set.
Very good. Well, certainly we appreciate your time and educating us a little bit on the medical side, right? It's a focus that I think it's safe to say that no one has been before us has had. So it's a unique aspect of I think what it is that you're proposing. So certainly we appreciate the uniqueness of that. And we may have follow-up questions, right? So part of our process is to get through 8 different interviews. We've got 2 more left next week, and then we'll start regrouping, and there may be questions coming out of that. Kathleen to try to get some follow-up thing answered, and until then, we appreciate your time, and
look forward to talking more.
And if I can say to you that we really appreciate this process as well. I've been through more of these processes across the state than I can tell you, and this has been incredibly organized. The guidance booklet that you put out, this has really been a good experience, so thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.